Hey guys, welcome to the video, and my apologies in advance for what is likely to be probably the most pessimistic video I'm ever going to make on the channel, but it's one that I want to address, and it's something I get asked about a fair bit when people find out that I used to be a teacher, and the question is, why did you leave, and what was it like? And what I want to do is kind of use some stats from this article to back up some of the points and kind of use these as talking points. I'll link it in the description, so feel free to have a look and see what you think. First of all, yeah, sorry for sounding pessimistic, but yeah, I'll just try and say it as it is. So I was a teacher in secondary school, so that's between year 7 and 6th form. I taught the whole range through. I taught mainly computer science, so there's a bit of computer science, a fair bit of code and Python in there, a little bit of Scratch, which is the visual one, and a bit of business as well. So business studies, which I, to be honest, utterly didn't enjoy whatsoever. But they basically had no business teachers, and they asked if I wanted to do it, and because I was basically given the job at the interview, I was like, oh yeah, of course, this is exciting, I'll say yes to everything, which in retrospect was not a good idea whatsoever. So the article is from last year, so it's fairly new in terms of its stats, and it talks about the vacancies we have in the UK at the moment. The number of vacancies, especially for specialist teachers, this has tripled since 2010. For sciences, it's 6 times as high. So that screams like, yeah, we have a problem in the UK. The sort of TLDR of why I think we have this massive problem is you don't get paid anywhere near what is worth it, to be honest, in my point of view. The workload is insane, and nowadays people seem to be dealing with more like behavioural issues in schools. Behaviour was okay when I was teaching, like the classes were mostly pretty good. I mean, I don't know how much of this is anecdotal, but I've heard behaviour is a lot worse nowadays. Another interesting stat I kind of want to put with this, and this is just a small sample size of one, but yeah, it's, I guess, more anecdotal stuff. I did my PGCE down south in Canterbury. We had, I think there was 7 or 8 in the course, and how many of us who passed the course still teach today? Like, none. We all left, which is quite sad. I mean, we had the bursary for doing it. But after 2 years, I realised that I would be much better off mentally, financially, and in pretty much nearly every single way if I moved on and became a lecturer at the University of Chester, which I did. Thought it was a smart move. I love lecturing. We're dealing with people who are obviously paying to be there, so they're engaged, they want to learn how to code. A load of students I taught at uni now work in the industry as software engineers, which is pretty cool. I have a few of them on LinkedIn and occasionally say hi to them. So that's super nice. But my main gripes with the teaching I had, I think first of all, was just simply the workload. So it's a bit different now. I know there's been a lot of stuff with Ofsted in the news about the pressure that puts on schools. But when I was teaching, that was a gigantic, lingering presence above your head. It was like this magical ghost Ofsted. Someone could just say it and suddenly everyone's like, oh shit, and mark everything. The marking was just completely unsustainable. I'm trying to think back now. I think I had around 8 classes or so. Each one had sort of between 20 or 32 roughly, depending on what year and what ability group you were in. And we're expected to mark every 2 weeks. So you can do the 8 multiplied by roughly 30, doing that every 2 weeks. And it wasn't just a case of going through and ticking. You had to kind of go through, leave a few decent sentences for each. Doing that on top of the lesson planning, giving verbal feedback for the written feedback you'd done as well, dealing with things like calling parents after school, and then trying to fit in all your lesson planning. Yeah, it quickly became unsustainable, and I tried to make it as efficient as I possibly could. I was doing things like coming in an hour early. I was doing I had a set time where I'd be right, phone is on Do Not Disturb. I put music on, I'd just try and get the lesson planning done in that hour. On your lunch break, you try and mark in between lessons, you try and mark, you do kind of little snippets here and there, but still, I found myself working Sunday evenings. Sometimes I start at 3:30 in the afternoon and work until kind of 9ish or 10ish, just marking away, making sure that I was planned, ready, good to go. So you only really had 1.5 days off a week. To top it all off, because the money was so low, especially for your first few years of teaching, I ended up working a second job at a climbing gym, which is great, but effectively working 7 days a week. I mean, to some degree, I didn't really count it as work, because I loved going to the climbing gym and climbing around and having monkey time, whatever. But it was, yeah, the fact that I was doing that was a little bit insane. Back when I was doing it, I think the starting pay was in like I believe it was the low 20s, which, yeah, I think that's sacrilege. Like, teachers, nurses should be on so much more than what they get. A lot of the teachers I know nowadays, yeah, they're like saints. They work incredibly hard. They put on these amazing lessons. I think they should be paid so much more. But yeah, I guess that's a whole other debate for another time. And the other reason why I think we're really struggling to recruit teachers now, and I guess it's dependent a lot on the current job market in the UK or like wherever you want to go work, is think about someone who's just, maybe got a really good degree in computer science, they've got a few years of coding under their belt. You start looking for graduate schemes, or you can then go and look at doing a PGCE or Schools Direct or some other kind of alternate like pathway into teaching. You've got to do the training to get into the teaching, so that's an additional year's worth of like admin, coursework, assignments, whatever, to then go into a job that's kind of like low 20s-ish, depending on where you are, of course, or a graduate scheme which might pay straight off the bat more money. You're working with code, a solid like 9 to 5 or hybrid or, completely from home. What are you going to choose? I think for a lot of people, I think it's a pretty obvious choice. And if I was to go back and make that choice again, I, unfortunately, as much as it sounds like a cop-out, I probably wouldn't have chosen teaching to begin with. I know, I did go on to doing stuff at university, which was fantastic. But I think given what I know about the workload, the pressures of things like kind of Ofsted and all the stuff working on the weekends and the low money, I think graduate schemes were probably a better choice in retrospect. Some additional stats from the article. So half the teachers who are planning to leave in 24 or 25 said they suffered from high levels of stress and exhaustion. This article also discusses the suicide of that head teacher because of the Ofsted inspections. And yeah, that's utterly tragic. That's really, really bad. And I, of course, don't remember it being too crazy in our school. Whenever there was just rumours of Ofsted being around, every single person there was just under more stress and more pressure. There was more kind of there's more of an onus to make sure that your marking was constantly up to date, no matter when or where you were. Your lesson plans kind of had to be out and visible. So I can, completely understand why a lot of people get super, super stressed and exhausted, especially if you're on a management level. It'd be pretty bad, to be honest. So yeah, I really feel sorry for a lot of people who do struggle with that stress and exhaustion because of things like Ofsted. They totally don't deserve it whatsoever. Teaching's hard enough. Another issue as well is the ratio. So I think in my first year, my biggest class, I think, was 29. I could be wrong. It definitely wasn't 30. My second year of teaching, pretty much all the classes had 3 or 4 extra people in, and suddenly I had classes that were 32, 33. There was one class where if one computer, say, didn't have a working mouse or a keyboard, 2 people had to share one, which is a bit stupid. So not good. And I think with us struggling to recruit more teachers, we're going to be seeing these bigger class sizes. And of course, it just means a vicious cycle. Bigger class sizes, more workload, more marking, more planning, more behaviour issues. It's a vicious cycle, which I think is going to get worse. So the question is, what do we do about this situation? Honestly, I don't really know. A few places to start, and of course these are just kind of meta things, are too high up, I don't know the granular details of this. If they were paid a lot more, of course that would massively help. If the workload was dramatically reduced, again, that would hugely help. And if schools had better strategies and better powers of dealing with poor behaviour, from speaking to teachers I know nowadays, that seems like that's becoming a bigger and bigger issue, is dealing with poor behaviour in classes and then not getting the support from the schools to kind of properly deal with those students, which is pretty sad in my point of view. How we tackle all those 3 things, the details, I don't really know. That's not really my area of expertise. But if I was thinking back in retrospect, if I had way less constraints on how I marked and planned lessons, just to kind of tick boxes and be yes, there is marking here in this book, I think it would have been a lot better. I actually think a lot of my students, if I could have a 2-minute chat with them and just kind of go through their work and be right, let me show you a few things you've done well, a few things you've done wrong, that would have been better for them rather than just me writing a vague sentence they might just read and go, oh yeah, okay. So I think improving the situation for marking and planning, making it so that teachers basically just have more control and more autonomy as to how they do it, and they're not working on bloody Saturdays and Sundays trying to get it done. And of course, if they were just paid more, but easier said than done, I suppose. So to finish it off, I'm sorry again for sounding super pessimistic, but it's a video I wanted to, make for a while. If you've been a teacher, you are a teacher, or you're thinking about it, I'd love to hear from you. What are your thoughts? What are your experiences? Is there things that you think as a teacher, especially for the computer science programming stuff, is there ideas you have that you'd like to share? If so, ping us a comment, ping us a message. Again, guys, thanks for listening. Have a great weekend and see you soon.